All right. Scale your MSP, automated patch management. I'm so excited. This is our first of many of our Scale Your MSP series. And so I'll go ahead to bring up to stage our speaker for today, Jen Six, our Senior Product Marketing Manager. Hey, Jen, how are you?
Hi, Danny. I'm great. How are you today?
I'm awesome. Thank you for asking. All right, I will go ahead and pass you the reins and have a great presentation.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And welcome everyone to our webinar. As Danny said, I am Jen Six. I am fairly new to the LogMeIn and GoTo family, but I am super excited to be here talking to MSPs. I have spent my entire career in the MSP software space, a full 14 years we're coming up on. So I'm really excited to be here and be a part of this team and talk to you a little bit about automated patching. So I do have a list of topics to be discussed today. So we will kick it off with just a patch management overview. We'll level set and get everybody on the same page. And then we'll really talk about the criticality of patch management and how that influences the way your customers behave, how you can control and help them stay secure, why you are the best option for patching at your customer environment, and really, you probably hear this a lot, but why automation is so important when it comes to scaling and growing your MSP and why we need to take advantage of that. Give you a few tips on defining your patching strategy, and then we'll talk a little bit about customer benefits and open it up for Q&A so you can win a $25 Amazon gift card. Okay, so for automated patch management for MSPs, we're going to kick it off with a quick poll so that we can understand the levels of automated patching everyone here is at. So we're going to pop this poll up, and we're just curious, have you implemented an automated patching strategy yet? And I see some answers rolling in, so we'll give you a couple more moments here. Looks like we've got a pretty mixed bag, so that is interesting. For those who are saying yes, I am very interested. If there is any opportunity for you to share some of your insights, if there's something I'm not covering you think should be mentioned, we'd love to hear it. We know the MSP community is truly that community, really focused on helping each other. So if there's some wisdom you'd care to share, we are all ears. All right, excellent. We got all those answers through. So I appreciate you taking the time to answer that, and we'll jump into the content. So I'm sure everyone here has a pretty good grasp, or at least a high level understanding of what patch management is, but just to be sure, we'll level set a little bit. So talking about patch management in general, that is going to be really that process of identifying, testing, and deploying and installing those patches to your end users' devices, whether that's an operating system or to a third-party application, but really just the process of getting those updates out there to keep systems safe and really usable. And we'll talk a little bit about that too. But how does it work? Well, it typically works through a solution designed for you as an MSP so that you can go in and configure your needs around patching for each of your customers and rely on that system to do that automation for you. So making sure that you have the visibility into all your client environments in a single console, and also giving you the ability to push those updates out and schedule those to automate it. And then per usual, the spiel about automation is so valid because automation really is that key to allowing you to do more with less and to scale your MSP. Throwback to the series here. So that's really what we're after. We want to make sure that you have the solutions and the knowledge of how to automate critical processes in your business so that you can continue to do more, service more customers, and really just improve that experience for everyone within your organization as well as those organizations that you serve. And we probably all know this too, but there are some really big reasons as to why patch management is so critical. And I like to think about it just from a personal standpoint. When I'm thinking about software and operating systems that I'm using, sometimes there's something really annoying that's occurring, like a bug in those systems or applications, and it makes me less productive, and it honestly it makes me a little cranky. And I'm sure that your customers feel the same when they are experiencing something similar in their systems. So we want to help them stay productive and being able to work on their business. So getting those updates out there and ensuring that your customers are staying productive helps them, and it also helps you because as they get more productive, they grow, which helps you grow. Um, Probably the most critical component of patch management is the security that it provides. So we want to make sure that when there are potential vulnerabilities, that we are in the know of those patches and that we can get those out to our customers, quickly to keep them secure. And I have some startling statistics that, it's like one of these things, it's bad, it's important, but when you start to see the numbers that come along with ineffective patching strategies, kind of just makes it hit a little more close to home. So we'll talk about that. But then also usability. Sometimes patches do include some really exciting updates and new functions and features within the software. So keeping your customers up to date with what they're using and ensuring that they have access to the latest and greatest is also a really key component of ensuring your patching strategy is defined and followed. And some things, we had a couple people say that no, they don't have an automated patching strategy, or they are thinking about it, but they haven't necessarily gone ahead and put that on paper yet. So I think maybe this slide is a good opportunity. If I'm missing something that you're running into an issue with, would love to hear it. But some common patch management challenges that we see, especially when there are not solutions in place to help support said process, is it's really cumbersome. It's just a lot when it's being done manually, and manual is like a bad word, I think, when it comes to MSP operations. We want to try to eliminate the manual processes as much as we can, not only because they're time consuming, but also because they are really error prone. And we want to eliminate that as much as possible within your org. And when you are doing manual patching, it's really hard to have full visibility into all the systems you're supporting. And that ranges from just the devices that may be in a specific customer's environment, all the way to seeing all the devices you manage across all of your customers. When it's manual, it's really kind of that one-to-one visualization. So having a centralized solution is always really helpful there. A lot of this is really just about how time consuming it is, having to go out and ensure that there are missing patches on any of these devices or within the applications on the device. Sometimes it's hard to test patches initially, and maybe they go out and there's an issue. We don't want to have that happen. So a good patching process does build in some kind of testing ahead of rolling it out, especially in mass. So having that automation and that system to support you is going to make that a lot easier. Really difficult to prioritize your patches based on the needs of the client. And that's especially important if you're an MSP serving different verticals, like maybe healthcare or the finance industry. You want to be really clear on what those needs are for that client and what compliance needs they have, especially if you are kind of specialized in that industry. Having that and knowing you can back it up is super important. And then one of the things that I'll talk about, and I say this fully understanding that this might be a hard thing to implement depending on your stage of your MSP journey, but when you've got applications that are differing across your customer base, that can make it really difficult to stay on top of those third-party patches and just make it a little more cumbersome. See a lot of success in the really operationally mature MSPs when they're standardizing the software that their customers use. They have a lot more understanding of what's out there, what's available, when there's patches or vulnerabilities. So having that standardization across your customer base can be really difficult to do. And maybe it's something you roll out as your journey continues and you have a few legacy customers using something different, but something to consider when it comes down to strategizing how you want to patch and how you want to be most effective at it. Just something to think about. And here are those startling statistics that I wanted to share, because vulnerabilities and unpatched systems can really cost businesses a lot. And the first one is a little bit of an older statistic, but it's one that always makes me shudder when I read it, that in 2019, 60% of data breaches were linked back to unpatched vulnerabilities. So completely avoidable instances, and over half of those data breaches that year were a result of just not applying patches. So we want to save our customers from that, right? We don't want them having any data breaches, but we certainly don't want them having a data breach as a result of a missed patch on our part. Another crazy number is 32% of ransomware attacks in 2023 resulted as a result of an unpatched vulnerability. That is another astronomical number that we can avoid. A third of ransomware attacks are a result of this. And in 2024, the average cost to a business that experienced a data breach was $4.88 million. Now, of course, that ranges businesses of all sizes, but there is a lot to be lost even by small businesses in the way of the productivity they would lose, and really just all the billings that they would have during that time, and then the time it takes to rebuild. So a lot of times customers who've never experienced any kind of data breach or malicious cyber attack, they kind of feel like they're immune to that kind of thing and may not see the value. And while I don't want to encourage anyone to be a fear monger, we have to be realistic about the way we talk about this with our customers and get them to understand really what's at stake, especially if this is someone you're selling to, and or you want to upgrade them and start doing patching for them. So having these kinds of statistics in your back pocket is always a good thing. And truly thinking about who is better to manage the IT environment and ensuring patching than an MSP. I generated this image using AI, so I love it for that. I did have to add the MSP on the chest. But we all know that MSPs, you are the unsung heroes of your customers. And a lot of it is because you're so good at your job. You're doing all these things in the background, you're keeping them secure, and they just are experiencing the benefits and maybe don't even realize all the work you're doing. So we want to make sure that they know you are the superhero behind the scenes and really give them reason to fully trust you and have you be that trusted advisor. And as far as benefits go, well, it's a known thing that many SMBs don't really have full-time IT resources on staff. So that's where you can fly in with your superhero cape, give them everything that they would be looking for out of a resource like that at a much more cost-effective rate. So, definitely want to let them know about that. But you're also now able to do scalable services, especially with the right solutions in place, to manage their entire IT environment. So you are that pro. You can lean on that when you're talking about patching, and you have access to centralized IT management solutions as an MSP. We want to make sure that you have what you need to be successful and to do your job well. So with that, I do want to show you a little bit behind the curtain on LogMeIn Resolve and show you some of the patching capabilities and visibility that our solution brings you. So we really want you to think about how you can transform your operations if you do not have a centralized patching system or that visibility into what's going on in your customers' applications and OSs. So this is a look at our devices screen within LogMeIn Resolve, and I feel that I have to just point out, especially as someone who has worked in the MSP software space for as long as I have, that this UI is beautiful to my eyes. It's so modern, it's easy to use. So when you're looking at this device list, you get all the devices in your system, and you might notice up there near the top, there's also tabs for you as an MSP to sort these devices by the groups you've created for your customers and by your customers in that tenants tab. So you'll have full visibility into everything, and then you can pare it down to whatever is most pertinent, whoever's environment you need to be looking at. But you can see in this list view, especially when you're looking at all devices, it gives you a really quick look to understand what OS updates exist for that device and what application updates exist. So we can really quickly understand, oh my gosh, something is behind, like I need to go ahead and patch that, all through that centralized visibility. And what you can do from that screen, and I want to call this out specifically around third-party application patching, is you can select from this list view, and then over on the right-hand side, you're able to go ahead and select application updates. That will bring you to a screen where you can see all the application updates across those devices, and you as the MSP are in complete control from that point to go ahead and say, do we want to install these immediately, or do we want to schedule them for the future? So if we know we want to push these out for this customer at midnight, hopefully people aren't working at midnight, we can go ahead and have these applications all installed at the defined scheduled time. For your OS updates, we can really get into the automation bit and create policies. And now this can be created for your groups, for your customers, to say automatically go ahead and install these OS updates at this set specified time. And you'll notice, maybe if I point it out, at the bottom of the screen, you do have options to manage the automation, and you have control over which patches are automatically getting applied. You can do it by severity, you can do all. But one thing that's really important, and we'll talk about it here coming up in the next couple of slides, is just always having a plan to test patches first. So if you've got some test devices or a test group, have those scheduled to run first so that you can make sure everything is copacetic and looks good to go before everything else gets pushed out. So some tips to prepare getting ready to define your patching strategy. There are a few key things here that you'd want to just have in your back pocket. You want to know your customer environments. Probably goes without saying if you're managing any IT for them at all, you want to know what they have. But really having that understanding of what is running for this customer so that you have the insights to all their devices to understand what's critical, what's a critical device, that's number 3, noting those and ensuring that those do have maybe more stringent policies around the automation as to when they go out. If that device is super critical to how they operate, we do not want that device sitting out there with a vulnerability, unpatched, just waiting for something bad to happen. So having that understanding of what's critical versus maybe what's not, and implementing that into the strategy can be really useful and help keep your customers safe. And with that comes into play understanding their risk tolerance. You want to know, how do they feel about this stuff? Is it super critical to them? And that just lets you level set. It lets you build that strategy out so that it's defined to meet your customers where they're at. Number 4 is the one I said I would not be mad if it's not in the cards at this moment in your growth journey, but consider consolidating the software vendors for your customers so that there just is less for you to have to keep up with and to know that you have to go and patch. That will just make your life easier, and it will make you more of a pro at the applications if that's really where you're focused. So if they do need troubleshooting help or something like that across like a line of business application, you can know that you can troubleshoot it because you're in it all day. And the last bit, and this gets missed a lot, is documenting that strategy. Really important to have processes defined within your org so that anybody can reference those. You have a guiding light in how those processes should be followed through and how you should approach those. But also so that if you have new members joining the team, it's really easy for them to go ahead and find this document. They can understand what that strategy is, and it just makes onboarding a little bit easier. And having that as well is going to be useful when you're talking to customers, especially if they do have a little bit of a technical side. You want to be able to confidently discuss with them what your strategy is to patching and be able to rely on a standard document that will help you tell that story, but also to fall back on should you ever forget or it needs to be updated. It's just a really best practice to have that kind of thing documented. So once you've thought all that through, it really does come down to, okay, what solution are we going to use to drive this patching? Again, depending where you are in that journey, it might be a different solution, but hopefully you've seen some things here in LogMeIn Resolve that have your wheels turning. But once you have that right solution, we want to determine the patching process and communications around how we are prioritizing, testing, and scheduling those deployments. So that's a really, really just important piece that, you can't say it enough, but you want to definitely test these out and have full confidence in what you are deploying, but then also taking advantage of the automation and scheduling that you can do to take the manual work out of it. And then the last bit, I just want to talk a little bit more about communicating with your customers because it is something that's so critical to MSP success, is not only landing customers and having those clients in your book of business, but also to retain them and to help them grow. It's really important to communicate a lot of the stuff that you're doing, whether that's via a QBR, a quarterly business review, or if it's something that you send out, on a monthly basis. We just want to make sure that you are communicating all the good work that you're doing for your customers to them so that they can appreciate you and love you for the superhero that you are for their business. So just, again, communication, really, really important. But we want you to plan for that success, improve those operations, and always continuously improve the customer experience everywhere that you can, especially while keeping those systems secure. This is just a regurgitation of the criticality of patching, but your customers are certainly going to realize, especially with the communication that you're sending, that they do have a hardened security within their business now, protecting them from cyber attacks. And that's something I think everyone appreciates, especially when they understand what the alternative is without that kind of protection in place. And then they can really just enjoy all the new things that vendors and OS providers are putting out into the market. So more productivity, they can get their bugs fixed, they get new features. And this is a little off topic, but it's really important, especially when you are trying to talk about this with your customer, that you are talking about the benefits and not really the features of what you're doing. They may care, but they probably don't really care about all the technicalities that go into defining their patching process, but they will care about the things that make it important to them and make them more productive and secure. So just always keep that in the back of your mind when you're thinking about how you're going to talk about these things with your customers. So that pretty much wraps up a lot of the patching content that I had, but I did want to just touch on LogMeIn Resolve for MSPs, because we do a lot more than patching, and we are designing the solution to fit MSP needs. We've got multi-tenancy built in so that you can get all of those customers into the single solution and manage their endpoints from a single spot. So remember that list view, all the visibility that comes along with that. We do have rich RMM functions, so alerting, remote execution, scripting, patching. I bolded it because that's what we talked about today, so it's really important. But it would be a disservice to just call us an RMM. There's so much more that we can provide, especially if you're doing any kind of remote support, super sophisticated remote support options that allow you to do backstage kind of work where you're not interrupting the end user. Really easy for your customers to join remote support sessions if they need to be there. And we are deeply focused on security. We are built on a zero trust architecture. So we know that any sensitive action happening through Resolve, we are capturing it with a zero trust key, so you can sleep easy at night knowing that that security is built in. And then we also have a help desk and knowledge base, so managing tickets, managing that knowledge of how to resolve tickets, all of that can be built out within your LogMeIn Resolve um, instance. And then the last bit, I just want to call this out because we're doing so much amazing work in terms of making you more productive through the use of AI. And this is one of those things too. I don't want to just ramble off what we're doing with AI. I want to talk about how efficient it's going to make you. So having an interactive assistant built into the system that can help you run diagnostics and give you insights into how devices are performing with AI assisted scripting. And I can vouch for that one personally. I don't know how to script. I went into Resolve and I asked it to do it and it did it perfectly. So lean on that to help you get your scripts in there. And we have even more exciting things coming by way of AI that will really make you more efficient and are super, super cool. And we have webinars coming up to talk about that. So we'll point you in that direction if you're interested in learning more. But at this moment, we have another poll question that we'd like to ask you. So just curious if you are interested in speaking with our team of experts to learn more about LogMeIn Resolve for your MSP. So we'll give you a moment here to go ahead and let us know. We'd love to chat. All right, awesome. And now we'll open it up for some questions. It looks like we've gotten some, so I'm very excited to address.
Yeah, awesome job, Jen. Thank you so much for walking us through that. It was great. We do have a couple questions already in. So, yeah, let's jump into it. And just a reminder that this is the way you are entered into our raffle to win that $25 Amazon gift card. So, no pressure. Okay, so our first question that we have here, Jen, what are the biggest mistakes when setting up a patch management routine?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think a lot of it are things that might get missed in the planning stage, right? So, not having a strategy is going to be probably the biggest mistake. It's going to make you inconsistent and unfortunately prone to issues and prone to vulnerabilities. I think another one that I would call out is not testing those patches first. Hopefully, I talked about that enough. How we know that's really important. You want to test those before they roll out. And then another big one that comes to mind is really not communicating it and talking to your clients about when patches are happening and what your strategy is. There are, I'm sure, more mistakes that can be made along the way, but those are the key ones that call out to me.
For sure. Those are the top ones, especially the testing part. I think that
Yeah.
just rolls into so many other things as well that people love to skip that step.
Yes.
Okay. Another question for you. How do I ensure patches don't interfere with my clients' critical applications?
Oh, well, I think that's a great question because my first answer to that is always test. Make sure you're testing those updates.
There's a pattern
And
here.
yes, I think I'm starting to see one myself. So test those as much as you can. If you have a sandbox or some kind of testing environment, you can roll those out to. Um, think about your windows of patching. If you have those maintenance windows that you can communicate and say, hey, we're going to do these patches for you where there's not a lot of business impact, maybe late at night or on the weekend, you can get ahead of some of those potential issues that could happen to those critical apps. But yeah, testing them, having some backups in place before you do the updates, those are all good ideas to make sure you're not getting in the way of those critical apps.
That makes tons of sense. So perfect. Awesome. Okay. Another question. What's the best approach to standardizing a patch management strategy across all my clients?
That is a really good question. So having some kind of policy template in place, and of course, I know there are probably reasons and customers that require customization and tailored types of patching, but having a template that lays out this is what we typically standardize on having that available to roll out to your customers, and then having a solution that supports you, and centralizing that kind of strategy is going to be critical as well.
That makes perfect sense. And then what third-party applications can Resolve help me patch?
Oh, that's a really good question. So we work with Wingit. If you are familiar, it's the Windows um, package manager, and everything that is within Wingit is something that we can update.
Perfect. Okay. And so there were a couple questions that our colleagues started answering in the background, but there might be some that we just want to reiterate. So I'm going to grab, let's see, Tony's question. Are there any plans in the pipeline for implementing policies for patching and updating applications in addition to window patches? Applications are the one I find myself manually updating.
Great question, and excited to share that yes, third party application policies are on the roadmap for this year. So, those policies, just like what I showed for the OS updates, will help you automate those third party patch installations. So, that is on our roadmap for sure.
Awesome. And let's see, looks like actually Tony had a follow-up question. If a patch fails, will Resolve send an alert through either the dashboard or an email? And if we need to follow up with them after the webinar, we can certainly do that as well.
Yeah, let's follow up. I don't want to misinform. So, we will absolutely get back to you, Tony, on that. Actually, yes, we will get back to you as soon as we can.
Perfect. And let's see, I think I have one more here. Some suggestions for convincing my customers that automating patches is more effective than doing it manually, in addition to what you've mentioned.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And when you're talking to your customers, I think it's kind of the same mindset, right, that we approach automation with, is that it's reliable. We will not make our human prone errors or miss anything when we have a solution supporting us. It's more timely. We can support you rolling patches out at midnight without necessarily having to be there at midnight. So there's a lot of different things. I think the timing, just the security of having an automated solution, and trusted advisor running that solution is a huge selling point in itself. But hopefully that's helpful. I think those are pretty key selling points if I were the customer.
Perfect, perfect. And I think that wraps up our Q&A session. So I definitely want to thank our audience for engaging with us, asking all of your great questions. We were so excited to talk through and answer for you. They were so thoughtful. So definitely want to give you guys, actually, let me send you a round of applause for an awesome Q&A session. Thank you guys so much.
Yes, thank you so much. So much. It's good, so good to have the interaction.